Hi everyone, my name's Jen. I'm an author and a book reviewer, and I'm really hoping that the lighting is okay today because it is misty and dull, but we're gonna roll with it. Hello. Normally, I like to trawl through publisher catalogues at this time of year. I make a most anticipated books video, normally twice a year, once at the beginning of the year-ish talking about the first half, and then later on in the year talking about the second half, because publishers tend to release their publishing schedules 6 months in advance. I have, I think, about 20 books to talk to you today, maybe closer to 25 actually. I have lots of books by authors whose work I've already read and loved, so I'm very confident about this list. Sometimes when I do most anticipated lists, there are quite a few debuts or people I've never read from before, and I'm intrigued by the premise but don't know if I'll like their writing. This time, the majority of the books are by authors whose work I've read and loved, and that feels very exciting to me. Now, in the past I have done reading vlogs where I have then read through my most anticipated books for a year and decided whether or not I was right in thinking I was gonna love them, and that's always quite an interesting thing to do, and maybe I'll do that for some of the books in this video too. But without further ado, I should probably just start telling you about them. I will list them in the description box down below. Firstly, I have to mention my own book, so let's get that out of the way first. A little bit of self-promo, but you know, gotta do what we gotta do. So I have a new book coming out in April. This is my 14th or 15th book, I can't remember, but this is the first time I've ever edited a book before. I have written part of this book, but primarily I was the editor for it, along with James and Lucy Catchpole. So this is the cover. It's called Owning It, Our Disabled Childhoods in Our Own Words, and it's edited by me, as I said, Lucy and James Catchpole. This is the book that we wish we had had when we were young. And this is a collection of essays by 22 people talking about their childhoods, their disabled childhoods. So they are disabled authors who were once also disabled kids, and we asked these writers to write about school life, about family life, friendships, food, whatever they wanted to talk about. So this is a book which is a collection of disability joy, also discussions on ableism, and as I said, just everyday life. It has been such a huge job putting this book together. I don't think I quite appreciated how difficult it is to edit an anthology and just coordinate so many different people and so many different schedules, and it was a lot. But I'm really proud of this book. It's a brilliant book, and I would love it if you could pre-order it. I will link it in the description box down below. If you're outside of the UK or even inside the UK, you can purchase it from Blackwell's, where it has free international delivery. And yeah, super proud of this book. Hope it finds its way into the hands of all the people it needs to find its way into the hands of. That was a weird sentence. Yes, very, very pleased with that book. It's out on the 24th of April, but pre-orders are so important. So please do go check it out. More details down below. Okay, so I have, as I said, about a list of 20 books. Some of them I have advanced copies of, and some of them I do not. So I have this one, first of all. This one is Hiromi Kawakami's Under the Eye of the Big Bird. I have read several of her books before, kind of had a bit of a hit and miss relationship with them. My favourite though is Record of a Night Too Brief, which was a collection of, I think it was just 2 novellas, but maybe it was 3. And the first one was about a woman whose girlfriend was made out of porcelain and kept breaking, discussions on kintsugi and stuff like that. And I just thought it was gorgeous. So this one is translated from the Japanese by Asa Yanida, and it says, "Welcome to the distant future. Humans are on the verge of extinction and have settled in small tribes across the planet under the observation and care of the mothers. Some children are made in factories, some from the cells of rabbits and dolphins, some live by getting nutrients from water and light like plants. The survival of the race depends on the interbreeding of these and other alien beings, but it is far from certain that connection, love, reproduction and evolution will persist among the inhabitants of this faltering new world." I mean, this just sounds like a bit of me, doesn't it? So I'm really hoping that that's a book I'm going to love. I've already read the next one, so I'll speak about it in a wrap up soon. And this is The Last Days of Kira Mullan, which is the new Nicci French book. You know that I'm a Nicci French stan. And I didn't realise when I read, what was it called? Has Anyone Seen Charlotte Salter? Which was their book that came out last year. I didn't realise they were starting a new series. Maybe they didn't realise they were starting a new series. I have no idea. But that was about a family whose mother went missing. And then in the second half of the book, 30 years later, you get a new investigation run by someone called Maud O'Connor. And I really did like her, that police officer, and now Maud is in this book too. And this is, as I said, a new series. And that excites me because you know that my favourite Nicci French books are the Frida Klein books. The only other series that they've done, I think? Yes, the only other series that they've done. So I love how we're going to get characters trickling into successive books and connecting stories and all of that good stuff. And I don't love this series as much as the Frida Klein series yet, but you know, we've got time. This is only book 2. This is about a woman called Nancy North who thinks that a woman in her building who's apparently died by suicide has not died by suicide, and she is determined to get to the bottom of it. It has their standard unreliable female narrator, which, yes, could be slightly tropey, but I do love that that is their focus, because I think they kind of breathe new life into that trope. I will explain more when I review it, but I enjoyed this book. I listened to it on audio, and it was one of those crime books that is slightly ridiculous but very Moorish. Yes, it gets a tick from me. Okay, now I have to refer to my computer. So we've got a book that's coming out next week, which I think, is it my most anticipated? Definitely really high up on my list. And this is Victorian Psycho by Virginia Feito. And I don't want to know too much about it, but her book, Mrs. March, which came out in 2021 or 2022, 2022 I think, was my favourite read of that year. It was just so brilliant, and this one is her newest. It says, I'm just going to read the very beginning of the blurb. Winifred Notty arrives at Ensor House prepared to play the perfect Victorian governess. She'll dutifully tutor her charges, tell them bedtime stories, and only joke about eating children. Only joke. But the longer Winifred spends with the estate's dreary confines, and the more she learns of the perversions and pathetic preoccupations of the Pounds family, the more trouble she has sticking to her plan. Mrs. March was deliciously creepy, kinda Patricia Highsmith-esque. I'm hoping this will be similar. Then next we have Blob, a love story by Maggie Sue, and the reason that I have pre-ordered this one is because it says that it's like a modern day Mrs. Caliban, which is a book by Rachel Ingalls that, again, I read, I think, maybe 2020 that time, and it was one of my favourite books of that year. A classic that was reissued by Faber, kind of the film The Shape of Water, but a million times better, about a woman who falls in love with Larry, who is a frogman, and yeah, she wants to leave her husband. She's grieving the death of her child. So yeah, this is supposed to be a modern day version of that. It says, Viv Liu's life is a mess. Having dropped out of college, she's stuck in a job she hates at a local hotel. Her ex-boyfriend has blocked her and she's lashing out at family and co-workers. One night, drunk outside a drag club, she stumbles across a mysterious sentient blob. She takes it home, where she feeds it a diet of sugary cereal and reality TV. Slowly, she realises that she can shape the blob into her perfect man. Someone attractive, outgoing, and with more than a passing resemblance to Ryan Gosling. Now, I don't know if I'm going to love the writing style of this one, but I'm invested in that premise, so we shall see. Then on the 27th of February, we've got a new book by TM Logan. This one is called The Daughter. I read his book, The Curfew, a few years ago as kind of a trying to find other crime thriller writers similar to Nicci French. His name kept popping up. I adored The Curfew. I have since read other of his titles, haven't loved them as much, but at the moment I am listening to his book, The Catch, which is a backlist title, listening to it on audiobook. And a bit like the Kira Mullan one, it is ridiculous but very, very Moorish. So I'm hoping to have a good time with the audio of this one. Many of his audiobooks are narrated by Richard Armitage, which is just, you know, a cherry on the cake. I don't know if this one is. I think maybe not, because I think it is a book that has a female protagonist, so probably not. But, you know, never mind. I look forward to checking that one out. Then we've got The Dream Hotel by Laila Lalami. I have never read any of her books before, but the premise of this one sounds amazing. It says, Sarah is returning home from a conference abroad when agents from the Risk Assessment Administration pull her aside at the airport and inform her that she will commit a crime. So they've analysed her dreams, seen she's going to commit a crime, so she's arrested in advance and she has to do some time in order to stop her committing this crime. But when Sarah arrives at this place to be observed alongside other dangerous dreamers, it soon becomes clear that getting home to her family is going to cost more than just 3 weeks of good behaviour. Now, this is giving me The Centre by Aisha Manazir Siddiqui. That is the vibe that I am getting, and that was also one of my favourite books a couple of years ago. So, very excited about that. Then this, I was so excited to get this, an advanced reader's copy of this. This is Mouse by the Sea by Alice Melvin, text by William Snow. Like, you know that I got a bit Alice Melvin obsessed last year. I would say it's because of my daughter. It is not. It's because I have bought her books for me. This is the third in her Mouse series. The first one was called Mouse's Wood. And there are books that explore nature, and they just have the most gorgeous flaps inside. And this one is the same. It's kind of hard to show because it's such a big book. There is a lighthouse flap in here. Maybe I can show you that one. I don't want to show you too much because this one isn't out yet. It is out in March. Where is the lighthouse? Here is the lighthouse. So yeah, we have a flap here. And you can see who lives in the lighthouse and all of the beautiful crochet things that these animals have made. I love it. It's gorgeous. I will talk about it more in my wrap up. But yeah, I would say the series are primarily for ages 3 to 7, but I am 38 and I love them. So I recommend them to everybody. Then next on my list, we've got The Book of Guilt by Catherine Chidgey. I am about to read her book, The Axeman's Carnival, which I'm very excited about because I loved her book Pet, which I read last year, the beginning of last year, and adored. So this is her newest one. She's very prolific, making all writers everywhere feel terrible about themselves. It says, England, 1979. Vincent, Lawrence and William are the last remaining residents of a secluded New Forest home, part of the government's Sycamore scheme. Every day, the triplets do their chores, play their games, and take their medicine under the watchful eyes of 3 mothers: Mother Morning, Mother Afternoon, and Mother Night. Their nightmares are recorded in the Book of Dreams. Their lessons are taken from the Book of Knowledge, and their sins are reported to the Big Book of Guilt. I mean, this just sounds, again, so delightfully creepy, and I also love the New Forest very much, so I'm intrigued by that setting. Then we have Kit DeWall's. Oh, I've missed one. I've missed Kirsty's book. Let's go back a step. This is out now. This is No and Other Love Stories by Kirsty Logan. This is a new collection of stories by Kirsty. I love Kirsty's writing and always have done, but I think her short stories are my favourite, though I am torn when saying that now because I have now read her book, The Unfamiliar, which again I will talk about in a wrap-up, which was a memoir, a non-fiction book, and I thought was stunning. So that actually may be my favourite now. But still, her short stories, gorgeous. So this is supposed to be quite disturbing love slash lust slash not really love stories at all. Out in time, I guess, for like an anti-Valentine's Day slash Valentine's Day sentiment. There we go. Yes. I thought I'd put these in chronological order, but I guess I didn't. Anyway, next up, coming out in April, I think, yes, the 10th of April, we've got Kit DeWall's new novel. I adored My Name is Leon when it came out quite a while ago now, actually. I enjoyed watching the adaptation of that as well. If you haven't seen it, I would very much recommend it. I have tried other work by her and haven't got on with it as well, but this one sounds brilliant. It's about a woman called Paulette. It says she's the kind of woman who likes the future all mapped out. First the wedding to Denton, then the Caribbean honeymoon, the gingham quilt on the baby's crib, until one morning, Garfield, Denton's friend, arrives at her door with news that she just can't take in, that Denton won't be coming round anymore, that there won't be any time to say goodbye. I mean, I think this one's probably going to make me cry. Kit is very good at making me cry. Then we have one of the Pushkin Japanese novellas. They've been reissuing some old ones, bringing out new ones. This one is by Kumi Kimura, and it's translated from the Japanese by Yuki Tajima. It's called Someone to Watch Over You. It's set in early 2020. It says, with the world in chaos as COVID spreads. I haven't read many COVID novels, I have to say. Don't know how I feel about that yet. We'll see. Cautious, I think, is how I feel. Anyway, as COVID spreads, 2 lonely people, both seeking to break with their pasts, meet and start sharing a home. One is a former security guard who was captured on video knocking down a protester who died soon afterwards. The other, a former teacher accused of driving a student to suicide. In an oppressive atmosphere of tension and fear, the pair avoid direct contact and communicate through notes and their shared presences, close yet distant. Their odd connection, with neither affection nor trust, brings them a kind of privacy and safety they both need. But at what cost? I think I am willing to read a COVID novel if it is very short. So this is a very short one because it is one of the, as I said, novella series. Speaking of Japanese fiction, I mean, I was going to say feast your eyes on this, but the reflective holographic text is making it hard to focus, isn't it? So this is Vanishing World by Sayaka Murata, which is translated from the Japanese by Ginny Tapley Takamori. I loved her book, Convenience Store Woman. Earthlings, I think, just traumatized me. It was a little bit too dark for my liking. I then read her book, Life Ceremony, which was a collection of short stories. Loved the first two, or two within the whole collection. Can't remember if they were the first ones. Didn't love the others so much, but have high hopes for this one, because listen to this premise. It says, in our near future world, children are slowly conceived by artificial insemination. Even sex between married couples is viewed as taboo. So it's about a woman whose family is irregular, her parents copulated to create her, and hope that she too will find love and have a child with the person she marries. But she falls in line with society's way of thinking and wants a regular, in inverted commas, clean marriage. Then she hears of a place that is the subject of a social experiment. Everyone in Paradise Eden will act as one big family. Could this be the perfect third way? So yeah, I'm hoping it's not as out there as Earthlings, not quite as dark, but still biting and gritty, because she is very, very good at that. Then we've got Gunk by Saba Sams. This is coming out in May. I do have a proof of this actually, but it's buried on my shelf somewhere, and it's not the finished cover either, so I will just insert the finished cover here. I loved her short story collection Send Nudes, which was a collection mostly about 20-something women and complicated relationships that they were in. I read it at a similar time to reading Watching Women and Girls by Danielle Pender, and just thought that both of those were amazing. I need to check if Danielle has another book coming out, actually. That has reminded me. But yeah, this is her debut novel. It says that Jules has been divorced from her ex-husband for 5 years, but she still works alongside him at Gunk, the grotty student nightclub he owns in central Brighton. She spends her nights serving shots and watching from behind the bar as Leon flirts with students on the dance floor. In the early hours of the morning, she paces home to sleep. So I think that he then gets in a relationship, and then I think she ends up in a relationship with the woman. I think it all sounds very messy and complicated and intricate, and I want to know more, and I wish to read that book, and I'm sure she's going to handle everything brilliantly. Then, hello, we have Ripeness by Sarah Moss. Another novel by Sarah Moss. I didn't know we were getting a new book from her this soon, because we had a non-fiction out from her last year. So this is a delightful surprise. So it's set in the 60s. Actually, it's a dual timeline. So partly set in the 60s, partly maybe set now. It just says decades later for the second part. So in the 60s, our main character travels to Italy to spend time with her sister who's pregnant, and I guess be there for the birth and all of that. And then in the later period, she gets a call from someone who says that she has a brother that she didn't know about. Sarah Moss is brilliant at writing complicated family relationships, so I look forward to that one very much. That one's also coming out in May, and then we have another book from Alice Slater coming out in May. This is her second book. It's called Let the Bad Times Roll. I really enjoyed reading her book, Death of a Bookseller, which came out a couple of years ago. This one I know is set in New Orleans, and I don't particularly want to know more about it, so I haven't delved into details, but I trust Alice. I've loved her short stories in the past before reading her debut novel. I'm sure that one's going to be great. Then, very excitingly, we have a new novel by Leila Mottley, who wrote the book Night Crawling, which emotionally destroyed me. I read that book when it was longlisted and ridiculously was not shortlisted, still not over it, for the Booker Prize in, was it 2022? I love that book so much. Such an amazing book for a debut, and for someone who I think was 17 when they wrote it. Brilliant. This is her new book. It's called The Girls Who Grew Big, And it says, when Adela Woods tells her parents she's pregnant, they immediately send her 1,000 miles away to stay with her grandmother. The intention is that she will leave her baby in the forgotten panhandle of Florida and resume her suburban life 9 months later as though nothing happened. But Adela's plans are soon washed away by the tide. Then I think she meets other new mothers. And yes, I remember reading Nightcrawling and it reminded me a lot of Sean Baker's films. If you like his films like The Florida Project, I think you will really love Laila Mottley's books. So check her out if you haven't already. And this one is coming out in June. Then we have also in June, The Original by Nell Stevens, who is the author of Briefly a Delicious Life, which I adored again a couple of years ago. I keep saying that in this video, which was a novel about a queer ghost who was in love with living people. And I know the premise sounds quite out there, but it really worked. This one is set in Oxfordshire in 1899 about a woman called Grace who grows up on the peripheries of a once great household, an unwanted guest in her uncle's home. She has unusual skills and unusual predilections for painting, though faces elude her, for lurking in the shadows and for other girls. So I think we have another queer story, hooray. Then a letter arrives postmarked St. Helena. After years missing at sea, Grace's cousin Charles is ready to come home. When Charles returns, unrecognisable and uncanny, a rift emerges between those who claim he is an imposter and Grace's aunt, who insists he is her son. Have you seen the film, The Imposter? I was just reminded of that. If you haven't, go watch it because it's brilliant. Anyway, that sounds great. Then coming out in July, there is no information about this one yet. This is possibly my most anticipated book of the year. This along with the Virginia Feito. This is When the Museum is Closed by Emmy Yagi. She's the author of Diary of a Void, which was one of my favourite books in 2023. It was pipped to the post by Paul Lynch's book, but I absolutely love Diary of a Void. I don't need to know anything about this. I'm definitely going to be buying it. I mean, to be honest, I would like to know more, but I will be purchasing it and I'm very, very excited about it. Then we have Few and Far Between. You may be able to hear my daughter, who's quite excited because it is nearly dinner time. So I'm going to have to disappear in a second, but we've got a couple more here. So we've got Few and Far Between by Jan Carson, which is set in the 1950s Northern Ireland, and also in 2017. I don't need to know more about this one because I love Jan Carson's writing, particularly love her short stories. The Last Resort is one of my favourites and I'm currently reading her collection Quickly While They Still Have Horses, which is a brilliant title. Then in September, we have two books that I'm very excited about by authors I love. We've got Glyph by Ali Smith. Now I know that came out last year, but that was Glyph spelt G-L-I-F-F, and this one is Glyph spelt G-L-Y-P-H. And so Homophones, which is quite confusing and very brave to do that from a sales point of view, very exciting. So I am so keen to read that. Still need to read the first Glyph, must do that soon. And then we have a new book by Oinken Braithwaite, who wrote My Sister the Serial Killer, which I read when it was longlisted for the Women's Prize ages ago. Was that like 2016, 2017? It's been quite a long time, but it's called Cursed Daughters. So it's about a girl who's born on the day her aunt is buried, and due to her uncanny resemblance, her great aunt and grandmother are sure that she is a reincarnation. I don't want to know more than that. It sounds brilliant. Yeah, those are all of the books that I am most excited about this year. I'm sure that I have forgotten some by authors whose work I've read before and loved, so please do forgive me. I will discover those as the months continue to pass. We're in February already, the year is quickly disappearing. Maybe you don't feel like that, but I do feel at the moment that time is going so quickly. My daughter is 1 next month. I mean, can you believe that? I can't believe it. I am slightly perturbed by that fact. Anyway, I will list all the titles that I mentioned in the description box down below. If you would like to pre-order Owning It, I would love that so much. Please do consider doing that. If you like this video and you're not already subscribed to my channel, please do so and stick around and watch more content. And if you enjoy the videos that I put out and you would like to consider throwing $1 in the tip jar over on Patreon, that'd be lovely. That is also linked in the description box down below. The support I receive over on Patreon allows me to keep creating free content for you all, and there's some extra stuff over there too. All right, I'm sending lots of love. I'll speak to you soon. Let me know what your most anticipated books of the year are in a comment down below. Lots of love. Bye.